They say every choice has a price. I never thought mine would come with $5,000. And a kiss I couldn't forget. It started like any other Tuesday. Bland coffee, broken elevator, the usual buzz of deadlines. But when my supervisor tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Mr. Cartwright wants to see you." Now. My stomach twisted into a knot. You don't just get summoned by the CEO of Cartwright Enterprises unless you've seriously screwed something up. And I hadn't. At least I didn't think I had. The ride up to the top floor felt like an eternity. I kept replaying everything in my head. Missed reports, office rumors, client calls. Nothing made sense. Until I walked into the room. Mr. Cartwright was calm, seated behind a massive glass desk like some kind of executive sculpture. He barely looked up. "Aiden," he said, his voice clipped but not unkind. "Sit." I sat. He didn't waste time. "I need a personal favor," he began. "And yes, you'll be compensated." That was my first red flag. The man didn't do favors. And he definitely didn't mix business with whatever this was. "I want you to spend time with my son. Get close to him." I blinked. "Sorry?" He looked me dead in the eye. "Zane's been isolated since his mother passed. He's angry, detached. Therapy hasn't helped. Friends haven't helped. Maybe you can." I tried to process it. "You want me to befriend your son?" He hesitated. "I want you to date him." Silence. Then, "Excuse me? I'll pay you $5,000 a month. Think of it as a social investment." I should have walked out. I should have said no. But rent was due. My student loans were choking me. And curiosity, damn curiosity, got the better of me. I didn't say yes. Not yet. But I didn't say no either. The next day, everything changed. I was at the coffee machine, still trying to wrap my head around that insane conversation, when I heard someone behind me say, "You're Aiden, right?" I turned around, and there he was, Zane Cartwright. He wasn't what I expected. He looked confident, maybe a bit guarded, but his tone was casual. "I'm Zane. My dad mentioned you." "Yeah," I said, heart suddenly racing. He mentioned you too." He raised an eyebrow like he already knew the script. Figures. He loves pulling strings. That line hit differently. Like he wasn't just annoyed, he was exhausted. We grabbed coffee and talked for maybe 20 minutes. It wasn't awkward. It was weirdly natural. He had this way of jumping between sarcasm and sincerity that kept me on edge. I could tell he wasn't someone who trusted easily, but when he laughed, really laughed, it felt like sunlight breaking through a storm. Later that day, a text, "Dinner? You and Zane, 7 p.m., already booked? Mr. C?" Of course. I almost didn't go. Almost. But at 6:45, I found myself outside an upscale downtown restaurant, fidgeting like a guy waiting for a date, which technically I was. Zane arrived right on time. Cool, collected, unreadable. We didn't talk much at first, but when we did, it was intense. He asked questions no one usually asked, about my past, my dreams, my fears. "I'm used to people wanting things from me," he said at one point. "But you, I don't know what your angle is." I didn't either, not anymore. That night, walking home, something shifted. He bumped my shoulder on purpose. I bumped back. We both laughed. It felt stupidly good. But guilt was already creeping in. I hadn't told him the truth, that this was a job, not fate. Over the next few days, we kept seeing each other. Coffee turned into walks. Walks turned into late-night conversations. One evening, on the rooftop of his building, he looked at me and said, "You ever feel like your life isn't yours?" "Yeah," I said, without hesitation. Then he leaned in and kissed me. It wasn't a slow build. It was sudden, warm, real, and it ruined everything. Because in that moment, I realized I wanted this. Not for the money, not for the favor, but for him, for us. But lies rot everything they touch, and this one was already buried deep. After that rooftop kiss, nothing felt the same. Zane and I didn't talk about it. We didn't have to. The way he looked at me the next morning, like he was both terrified and relieved, said everything. We kept seeing each other. Not constantly, not obsessively, but enough. Enough to know it wasn't just chemistry or convenience. Something real was forming, and it scared the hell out of me. Because no matter how deep we got, I couldn't forget how it all started. The lie sat in my chest like a landmine. Every time he laughed at one of my dumb jokes, or opened up about his mom or his father, I'd hear Mr. Cartwright's voice in the back of my head. $5,000 a month. Just get close to him. It wasn't just guilt anymore. It was dread. Zane, though, he seemed lighter, like he was finally breathing again. The guy who'd once kept the world at arm's length was texting me at midnight about dumb memes, dragging me to underground art shows, even holding my hand in public like it was no big deal. But I knew better. For someone like Zane, raised behind gates, surrounded by expectations, that kind of vulnerability was a risk, and I was the last person who deserved it. One night, after a long walk along the waterfront, we sat on the hood of his car, watching the city lights shimmer across the water. He told me about growing up with a father who cared more about reputation than connection. How after his mom passed, the silence in their house was louder than any fight could have been. Then he said, "You know, I used to think love was just another version of control." I stayed quiet. "But with you," he continued, "it's different. It doesn't feel like someone's trying to own me. It just is." I wanted to tell him the truth right then, but the words caught in my throat. The moment was too raw, too fragile, and I was too much of a coward. Instead, I said the one thing I shouldn't have. I feel the same. I hated myself for that. Days passed. We got closer. He introduced me to his circle, a few friends, mostly misfits like him. He even brought me to a private family function, where Mr. Cartwright pretended not to know me. We exchanged brief eye contact, and that was it. No threats, no reminders, just a quiet, burning warning. Zane noticed my tension. He always noticed. "You've been weird lately," he said one evening as we walked through the park. "Like, you're here but not really." "I'm just tired," I lied. "Work's been brutal." He didn't push, but his eyes said he didn't believe me. Then, a few nights later, everything cracked. We were curled up on my couch, some old movie playing in the background, when Zane suddenly asked, "Why me?" I looked at him. "What do you mean?" He sat up a little. "You could be with anyone, Aiden. You're kind, grounded, normal." "I'm not." "That's not true," he scoffed. "You don't even know half of what goes on in my head. I'm a mess most days, and people like me, people from my world, we come with conditions." "Maybe," I said softly, "but I'm still here." He smiled, but it was faint, like he didn't believe me, like he was testing how far the truth could stretch before it snapped. I kissed him to quiet the questions. That night, while he slept beside me, I stared at the ceiling and realized something terrifying. I didn't want the money anymore. I wanted him, just him, but I'd already let the lie get too far. If I told him now, it wouldn't sound like the truth. It would sound like a betrayal. The next morning, I almost did it. I opened my mouth, heart pounding, and said, Zane, there's something He cut me off. My dad talked to me last night. My blood turned to ice. What did he say? Zane looked out the window. Nothing specific, just the usual, that I'm making poor choices, that I should focus on the company, not distractions. He didn't say your name, but he didn't have to. I stayed quiet, every nerve on fire. Zane turned back to me. He always does this. Gets into people's heads, uses money to twist everything. That's how he works. I wanted to confess right then, to throw everything on the table and say, that's exactly what he did. To me. And I let him. But I froze. Again. Zane's hand found mine. I'm scared, Aiden, he whispered, because I don't want this to fall apart, and I feel like something's going to ruin it. My heart shattered. It won't, I said. I promise. Another lie. But in that moment, I couldn't bear to see him break. Not yet. Not when we'd come this far. There's a moment, a single second, when everything you've built starts to crack. You hear it before you see it. A silence that hums, a stillness too perfect. That moment hit me on a Thursday afternoon. We were at a park just outside the city. Zane had insisted we get out of our usual routine. He said he wanted fresh air. Truth was, I think he needed distance, from his father, from work, from pressure, from everything. But he hadn't said much all day. Not like usual. No teasing, no sarcastic jabs. Just long silences, half-formed thoughts, a strange tightness behind every look. We sat down on a bench near the lake, away from joggers and families. Zane stared out at the water like he was waiting for something. Then, without turning to me, he said it. Do you know why my dad wanted us to meet? My heart stuttered. What? He finally looked at me, eyes hard to read. Come on, Aiden. You think I wouldn't figure it out? I felt the world tilt. Zane, Don't. Just tell me the truth. I opened my mouth, but it was like all the air had been sucked out of my lungs. For a moment I considered pretending, dodging. But it was too late. Yes, I said, quietly. He paid me to meet you, to get close. Zane didn't flinch. He just sat there. Still. Too still. How long? He asked. From the beginning, I admitted. But it's not what it sounds like. It started that way, yeah, but now it's different, he cut in, voice tight. Yes. I swear. I stopped taking the money. I didn't care about that anymore. I care about you. Zane stood up, pacing a few steps before turning back. You lied to me, Aiden. Every conversation we had, every touch, you were playing a part. No, I said, standing too. At first, maybe, but it became real. You became real. His jaw clenched. Was there ever a moment, even one, where you were just you? No secret motives? No hidden deals? There were hundreds, I said. Every time I looked at you and forgot the rest of the world existed. He shook his head, laughing bitterly. You sound just like him. That hit harder than anything. I'm not him, I said. I've never tried to control you. I never wanted to hurt you. But you did, he said. You don't get it, Aiden. Everyone in my life wants something. Everyone. And I thought you were different. I am, I pleaded. I messed up. I was scared. I didn't know how to tell you. But I swear, what I feel is real. He looked at me like he wanted to believe it. But something behind his eyes was closing. I need time, he muttered. I can't do this right now. Zane, please. But he was already walking away, and I let him. I stood there, frozen, as the distance between us stretched into something I didn't know how to cross. The days that followed were brutal. No texts, no calls, no signs of him. Work became a blur. Food lost taste. Sleep was a joke. I kept going over that moment on the bench, what I could have said, what I should have done differently. But the truth was, I waited too long. I chose silence when I should have chosen honesty. And now I was paying the price. Then, 3 nights later, I got the call. It was almost midnight. My phone lit up with his name, and for a moment I thought I was dreaming. I answered so fast I nearly dropped the phone. "Zane?" There was silence. Then, his voice, softer than I remembered. "Hey." My throat closed. "I didn't think you'd call." "I didn't think I would either," he admitted. "But I've been thinking." I stayed quiet, letting him talk. I've spent so long keeping people out, controlling what I let in. I thought it kept me safe. But maybe it just kept me lonely. "Zane, I'm so sorry," I whispered. "You have no idea how much I regret lying to you." He exhaled. "I know. I could hear it. I needed to believe you for myself. Not because you said the right thing, but because I could feel it." "And?" Another pause. "Can I come over?" My heart nearly exploded. Of course. 10 minutes later, he was at my door. He looked exhausted, like he hadn't slept in days. But his eyes, those guarded, beautiful eyes, held something else now. Something raw, unprotected. I let him in. No words, just space. He stepped inside and turned to face me. "I don't know how to fix this," he said. "We don't have to fix it all tonight," I replied. "We just have to try." And then he kissed me. Slow, intentional, no fireworks, just warmth. Real, steady warmth. When we pulled apart, he said, "I don't want perfect, I just want the truth." "You'll have it," I promised. He nodded, and for the first time in days, I saw him breathe. We sat together in the dark, two people trying to rebuild something fragile, something broken, but not beyond repair. And for the first time in a long time, hope didn't feel like a lie. For a few weeks, it felt like we had outrun the fallout. Not perfectly, not without pain, but we found our way back to something resembling connection. Two people moving slowly through the ruins of a lie. Rebuilding with honesty this time. Zane was different after that night. He didn't say much about his silence during those days apart, but I saw it in how he looked at me. Not with suspicion, but with cautious trust. Like he'd made a choice to believe in us, even if he didn't fully understand why. We didn't rush anything. Some nights we just sat side by side, barely speaking, just being. Others, we talked for hours. About childhood, fear, expectations, the pressure of being a Cartwright. He shared stories I never imagined he would, about how after his mother died, everything became hollow. His father filled the space with expectations and silence, and Zane, in turn, built walls he couldn't even see anymore. And me. I stopped hiding. I told him about my family, the strained calls, the guilt about chasing a life far from home, the fear of never being enough. He listened, really listened. And when he touched my hand, it didn't feel like comfort or apology. It felt like understanding. We were growing into something solid, until the knock on the door. It was late, past 10, and we were mid-conversation, sitting on Zane's couch, laughing over something stupid he'd found online. The knock silenced everything. Zane stood, frowning. "You expecting someone?" "No," I said, heart sinking. He opened the door. Mr. Cartwright stood in the hallway, flanked by silence and tension. His expression was unreadable. No anger, no warmth, just control. "Zane," he said flatly, "we need to talk. Alone." Zane crossed his arms. "You could have called. I needed to see you." He glanced at me. Zane caught it. "No," he said. "You want to say something? Say it in front of him. I stood up. It's okay. I can step out. Zane stopped me with a glance. Stay. Mr. Cartwright's jaw flexed, but he entered. The room shifted with his presence, like gravity had changed. He turned to Zane. You're getting in too deep. This wasn't meant to last. My blood froze. I hadn't heard that voice since the beginning. Cold, measured, certain. Zane laughed, sharp, bitter. Still playing God, huh? This was supposed to help you, his father snapped. Not make you dependent on someone who actually gives a damn? Zane shot back. Yeah. Real shame. Mr. Cartwright turned to me. I told you this would backfire. I met his gaze. You paid me to care. Turns out, I actually did. His eyes narrowed, but he said nothing. Zane stepped forward. You think throwing money at me is love? Manipulating my life? Bribing people to pretend? Pushing me into your image? You think that helps? I was trying to protect you, Mr. Cartwright said. You have no idea what it means to carry this name. I don't want your name, Zane said. I want my life. The silence was brutal. Then Zane said it, the words that cracked everything wide open. I love him. I turned sharply. So did his father. But Zane didn't flinch. His voice stayed steady. I love Aiden, he repeated. And it's not your call. Mr. Cartwright stared at him. You're throwing away everything for this. No, Zane replied. I'm finally choosing something that's mine. I stood frozen, every muscle tense. Mr. Cartwright looked at me. You started this under false pretenses. I did, I said, and I'll regret that for the rest of my life. But I stayed because I fell for your son, and I'm not walking away. He didn't respond, just turned to Zane. You've made your choice? Zane nodded. I have. Then, without another word, Mr. Cartwright walked to the door. Just before he left, he paused and glanced back at us, not with approval, not even resentment, but something almost lost. Then he was gone. Zane collapsed onto the couch like the air had been knocked out of him. I sat beside him. You okay? He didn't answer right away. Then, that was the first time I told anyone I loved them. I reached for his hand. You meant it? He looked at me. I wouldn't have said it if I didn't. Something shifted inside me, like I could finally breathe fully again. I love you too, I said, the words quiet but solid. And that night, there was no kiss, no grand gesture, just us, sitting in the dark, hand in hand, two people who finally chose each other, against everything. For a while it felt like we were holding our breath, waiting for the next blow to fall. But nothing came. Mr. Cartwright didn't reach out. He didn't show up. No calls. No emails. It was like he had erased us both from his personal script. And maybe, in some strange way, that was the best thing he could have done. Not by choice, but by consequence. Zane didn't talk about it much. Not directly. But I could feel it in him. He was lighter, but not carefree. Like someone learning how to live without bracing for impact. He still carried the weight, but now he let me carry some of it too. We didn't pretend everything was perfect. There were days when Zane would fall quiet in the middle of a conversation, retreating into himself, trying to process a world that had shifted beneath his feet. And there were nights when I couldn't sleep, thinking about how close I came to losing everything, not because of something I did, but because of something I hid. So we stayed honest. That became the rule. Every small doubt, every fear, every moment of insecurity, we put it on the table. No more pretending, no more half-truths. One night, a few weeks after the confrontation, Zane looked up from his phone and said, I've been thinking about leaving the company. I didn't act surprised. He'd been drifting from it for a while. "What would you do instead?" I asked. He shrugged. "I don't know. Something real. Something that feels like mine." "You don't have to figure it out right now." "I know, but I want to." That's when I realized just how far he'd come. From the guy who once said love felt like control, to the one now taking back control of his own life. We started doing little things differently. Mornings weren't rushed. We'd make coffee and sit by the window, not talking about work or responsibilities, just being. Weekends turned into road trips with no destination, just two guys with nowhere to be and no one to impress. It wasn't flashy, it wasn't dramatic, but it was ours. Zane slowly reconnected with old friends. He reached out to people he'd pushed away during the worst years. Some responded, some didn't. But every time he tried, he came back a little stronger. He even called his father once. I wasn't in the room for that. He didn't want me to be. When he hung up, he said, "It wasn't closure, but it was something." And that was enough. Our relationship didn't go viral. No fairy tale ending, no dramatic public declarations. Just real steady days, one after another. We built something, not out of perfection, but persistence. Zane eventually left Cartwright Enterprises. He didn't make a big announcement. He just walked away. He got a job at a nonprofit that helped LGBTQ youth, a quiet, behind-the-scenes role. He never made it about himself. He didn't even tell them who his father was. He just showed up and worked. That's who he was becoming. Someone defined, not by his name, but by his choices. And me? I stayed with him. Through the quiet months, through the uncertainty. I built my own career. Slowly, I stopped looking at my future as a plan I had to stick to, and started seeing it as something we could write together. There was one night, not long ago, that still sticks with me. We were out late, walking back from a small diner. Zane stopped on a street corner, looked up at the sky, then turned to me and said, "Do you think we'll ever stop waiting for the other shoe to drop?" I thought about it, then said, "Maybe not, but if it does, we'll deal with it. Together." He didn't say anything, just took my hand, and that was the moment I knew we were going to be okay. Not because the past had vanished, not because we had all the answers, but because we chose each other. Every day, every scar, every risk. Love wasn't about grand gestures. It was about staying. It was about telling the truth, even when it hurt. It was about looking someone in the eye and saying, "I know where this started, but I know where I want it to go." And we were going there, slowly, honestly, together.